Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Radcast of the Social Club at the End of This World. I'm Jamin Shively, very honored to be moderating this and want to welcome everyone. We normally start with kind of just a super brief kind of personal recap, like for maybe about a minute or so of kind of what you've been up to lately, anything you want to share on a personal front. By the way, that sharing and all sharing here on the Social Club is totally optional. In fact, no one is ever required to speak or put on the spot where, hey, you have to answer this. You know, what's your business? You can just say, hey, man, I'm just listening, right? So it's okay to listen, just listen. Anyway, in terms of personal updates, who would like to give a personal update? Just raise your hand or otherwise signal. Okay, we got Miles, Adam. I'll give a personal update. Jamin, Nolan. Okay. Four of us will give personal updates. Why don't we start in the order you raised your hand, starting with Miles, followed by Adam, followed by Nolan, and finally Jamin. Take it away, Miles.
Okay, thank you, Jamin, and hello, everybody. My name's Miles Flegg. I'm in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Calgary, also known as, that means elbow. I learned that the word in the Nitsitsi language, Ninitsitapi language, is Mokinstis, which means elbow. But because traditionally there have been other nations in this area, sign language is actually a pretty big part of their communication, and it's where the Elbow River and the Bow River are the confluence. This is part of Treaty 7 territory here in Canada. And my update is simply that I had the honor and the privilege of volunteering at an event called the Indigenous Gathering Place Society Meeting of the Elders. So there was elders from the Siksika, the Niitsitapi, the Piikani, Cree people, Métis people. And I'm always just absolutely amazed. Maybe amazed is not the word, but there's something very deeply spiritual about the way they make decisions and communicate with each other. And I'm not professing to be representing them, but we have so much to learn with respect to how to move forward and to adjust the way we've been doing things. Business as usual has to change, and we can learn a lot from the Indigenous people in that regard. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Miles. Thank you. All righty. And up next is Adam. Take it away, Adam.
Okay, everybody hear me all right? So,
yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm hoping that my website will be up today, aworldwithoutmoney.com or .org, excuse me. And I've got two videos, the introduction videos. That's all I'll have right now, the 5-minute and an 8-minute one. And so if anybody wants to be on the email list, I've got them posted unlisted right now on YouTube, and I think they're pretty good. I've used this new software and been able to integrate some stuff and studied that Fair Use Act quite a bit. So I feel pretty comfortable about using whatever I want off the internet, basically, because I'm not selling it for money. So I'm not making any money off of it. So anyway, that's hopefully I'll get that online. And I'm excited for you, Jamin.
Well, you broke up a little bit there. You're kind of frozen at the moment. Okay, you were saying I'm excited for you, Jamin. Take it away, Adam.
Yeah, I'm excited for you, and hopefully I can drum up some support for you. We got to get that Arctic frozen.
Yeah, refreeze the Arctic. Beautiful. Well, we'll recap on all that in a couple of minutes. So thank you, Adam. Appreciate all your support. All righty. Next up is Nolan. Take it away, Nolan.
Hey, everyone. For those just tuning in, my name's Nolan Straight. I'm down here in Vancouver, Washington right now. And my brief update is I just got back from Seattle, spent about a week and a half up there, establishing and strengthening some pre-existing connections and making some new ones. And there are really, really great conversations happening all around, kind of from all different directions, really, but getting at this this clear need for transformation, and it's given me a lot of hope. And I'm planning on moving up to Seattle here in a few weeks, so Jamin and I will be able to work closely, and I'll be right next to the university there for a little while. At least that's the plan. And so a lot of good things coming, and I have a lot to be thankful for, and I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, I am equally excited that you're here, Nolan. Nolan just joined us a little over 2 months ago, and he and I had been in contact for going back a couple of years prior, and he has become just a major, major force in Radish and SRM and collective intelligence, etc. All right. Well, I'll give my personal update. We didn't have the social club a week ago because Nolan was up here visiting, and we were working super hard on some white papers, which I'll mention. First, wanted to mention I am on the lands of the Coast Salish peoples here in Western Washington, and we are. I've been leading the social club for a little over 2 years, maybe 2 years and 4 months, ever since meeting Guy McPherson and having him speak at my events in California at the Sierra Club. I'm program chair of the East Bay Sierra Club dinners, and we've been having a number of speakers on relevant topics: climate change, veganism, solutions to climate change, etc. And I'm also president and co-founder of radish.org, and where we're pioneering a form of collective intelligence. And the white papers that we've been working on, and this gets into kind of the overall summary, we basically believe that the first two most urgent things that we need to do to save life on Earth are evolve this collective intelligence, and that's what we're doing right here, right now, is collective intelligence. We're all gathering together, communicating on video conference, recording the meeting, and talking about all these things that are so important, such as, and that's the second big pillar, is SRM, solar radiation management. Cooling the planet by reflecting a portion of the sunlight that's landing on the Earth back into space, so it never even heats us up in the first place. And the really quick recap on the theory, the science, and why this is so important is that with all the greenhouse gas emissions from the last several hundred years in particular, we're retaining heat that would otherwise be re-radiated back into space as infrared. Visible spectrum light comes from the sun, lands on the Earth, heats up the Earth. The Earth is getting hotter and hotter, and it tries to cool off by re-radiating infrared back into space. The greenhouse gases prevent a portion of that infrared to get back into space, and it gets reflected back to the Earth. And so we've been storing heat, and this heat gets stored in the oceans. The heat melts the ice, and we're simply overheating. Now, is it as simple as that? No, it's not as simple as that. This overheating has caused all kinds of changes in the climate, including causing certain places to get colder, right? Those are increasingly the exception. The general picture is we're overheating, right? And badly so. And the loss of ice, of course, reduces the amount of sunlight that gets reflected back into space. So it's a vicious cycle. Guy McPherson has pointed this out very clearly. He's identified no fewer than 67 self-reinforcing feedback loops, accelerating this overheating. And that's why SRM, solar radiation management, is so important, because with it, what we're basically proposing and will be doing as soon as we get properly organized is, and Miles, thank you for showing your picture of the snow out there, that is reflecting sunlight back into space. That's why it's bright white. What we're doing with SRM is basically creating more of that reflectivity in a number of ways, but in a very simple way, for example, is take, here, let me get some material so I can show you better what we're talking about. Okay. This is a snack food we have here in the United States that I probably eat too much of. It's called Smart Food. And if you open up the bag, on the inside, what do you have? Metallized plastic, metallized film. It's a very thin layer of aluminum atoms, about 10 atoms thick, literally, that super thin. And that material, imagine that we rolled out literally millions of square miles of this stuff on different parts of the planet and reflected a portion of the sunlight back into space instead of landing on the soil or landing on the water and heating up the planet even more. I mean, it's literally that simple. And yes, it takes some, degree of understanding of physics in order to understand why that's the case. And that's one of the reasons that my Uncle Frank is joining us. He is a career physicist, retired now, but very active mentally, and we talk pretty much every day. So anyway, Uncle Frank, feel free to chime in with any of your thoughts as to the physics of planetary overheating and SRM. But the basic idea is cool the planet by reflecting sunlight back into space. Now, where to do that is a very important question, right? Because since we're talking about modifying the Earth's energy balance to go from net overheating to net cooling, I believe we need to go through a net cooling period where we cool the planet, cool the oceans, refreeze the Arctic, as Adam mentioned, or maybe it was Miles. Anyway, we all believe we need to refreeze the Arctic. But to do that, we simply have to cool the planet. But again, where to do it? Do we do it? Do we put these giant mirrors over the ocean, over deserts, on the rooftops of houses? Where do we apply this reflectivity, these mirrors to cool the planet? And that's a very important question with, I'm sure, not a very simple answer, because, well, let me just get right to the point on that. What we need to do is do global modeling, not just global climate modeling. We need to do ocean modeling, atmospheric modeling, rainfall modeling for the planet as a whole. And this is very complex stuff. Climate modeling is not easy stuff. It's not simple stuff. But we need to do the very best modeling that we can so that we can experiment virtually, experiment numerically with modeling different scenarios to find, the best distribution of SRM mirrors throughout the planet to cool the planet, and at the same time ensure as best we can that we have, I'll just say, healthy weather patterns, healthy rainfall patterns throughout the world so that we can continue to grow food and survive and have water to drink and not have erosion from too much flooding, not have mass death from too much drought, etc. So the objective, there's a simple objective and then there are complex objectives. The simple objective is to cool the planet. The complex objectives are how we do that and how we modify, because we will modify weather in the process. And there's a lot of people that say, no, we shouldn't be applying technology to modify the weather, right? We've already done too much of that. And the best thing we can do is hands off. Well, I feel like we're all in this big van going down a hill and there's a cliff coming up, and hands off to me sounds like take our hands off the steering wheel, take our feet off the brakes and just coast. And then what? Go flying over the edge of the cliff to our death? No, I say we grab onto the steering wheel, we put our feet on the brakes, and we modify our destiny. So by cooling the planet. Anyway, that's a very brief recap on solar radiation management. Back to collective intelligence for a minute, and then I'll go on mute and ask people to jump in with their thoughts, to add to what I'm saying or ask any clarifying questions. So SRM, because it's so complex, technically, to figure out where we should put the reflective materials. Reflective materials themselves, because metallized film exists, there's a whole industry cranking out billions of dollars of this stuff. This is the simple part, right? Manufacturing the reflective material, that's simple. Even deploying it is simple. These aren't super high tech in and of themselves. The hard part and the high tech part is doing the global modeling so we figure out where and how much mirrors to place in different parts of the world, right? Okay, so that's very complex technically. In addition to that technical complexity, we also have the complexities around politics, culture, delusion, right? People saying, oh, it's a cyclical thing. It'll take care of itself. It's not really happening, right? Oh, it's a Chinese hoax, to quote President Donald Trump of the United States, right? So we have these political and cultural and media challenges. We need to get the world out. We need to build a massive coalition of countries, of academics, of governments, of private sector, of individuals such as ourselves. We need to organize like we're doing right here, right now, and make this happen. So all that complexity, both the technical and the non-technical, all that complexity begs for collective intelligence to be applied to this set of problems and challenges so that we can come up with all the solutions that we need. Scientific solutions, engineering solutions, political solutions, media solutions, cultural solutions, right? Social solutions, financial solutions, environmental protection solutions, so that we make sure whatever we implement doesn't hurt the local ecosystems, et cetera, right? So there are so many solutions we need to come up with, and we're running out of time. According to Guy McPherson, we're lucky if we've got a couple years left before there's total collapse. Other relevant topics include global dimming, the aerosol masking effect. We can talk about that, but I feel like I've been talking for a few minutes now, so I'm going to go on mute and just jump in if you have anything to add to that or any questions to ask. Let's make it a conversation. So going on mute, just feel free to jump in. And if we have more than one person wanting to talk at a time, I will manage the queue. So just make it known if you want to talk. And we often do that by typing into the chat window here. I'm just going to type in my name. If I type Jamin into the chat window, hopefully you can all see that. Basically that says, I want to talk, right? And so that's, yeah, go ahead, Miles, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to hear you talk about what you've been able to draft insofar as your, I guess, would we call this your first iteration of your white papers, the 3 white papers? So I know that you're going to hopefully you'll go into those insofar as summarizing where you're at. But one question, when you talk about collective intelligence, just want to put this on your radar if it's not already, but the emphasis should be on the fact that there's collective multiple intelligences. So there's not just cognitive intelligence. And my awareness of this is very new. I've always, when anybody would say intelligence, it was like, okay, you're thinking cognitive intelligence, our ability to think analytically, being rational and such. But indeed, there is emotional intelligence, and I'm just on Google here. There's existential intelligence, interpersonal intelligence. Insofar as what we're doing here, we're probably all fairly high in the interpersonal intelligence because we're brave enough to come onto this platform and share openly. There's also linguistic intelligence. There's bodily kinesthetic intelligence and musical intelligence, spatial intelligence, naturalist understanding intelligence of living things and being able to read nature. So there's some of these powers are more prevalent, perhaps even in, say, the feminine than they are the masculine. Anyway, long-winded question.
Yeah, very good. Very good, Miles. In fact, one thing I could do is share a slide that shows kind of the different layers of the specific form of collective intelligence that we've been focused on. Not that that's the best. I kind of want to talk in general terms before we even get into those levels of details. But the basic idea. So first of all, I totally validate everything you're saying, Miles. There's all these different kinds of intelligence, and we're probably only tapping into a few of those in what we're doing here, right? And we need to evolve across all of those dimensions to become not just a more intelligent species, but a wiser, more compassionate species. Go ahead, Nolan, please jump in.
I think that a pretty useful term to consider as we're trying to encapsulate all of these kinds of intelligences is consciousness, because it's both a scientific and mystical or religious term. And I think that we can pretty aptly describe our goal as the expansion of consciousness in all directions, which implies all the directions Miles mentioned and more. So just want to throw that in there.
Very good. All right, I think I will screen share and show this image that I was talking about. Can everybody see that on their screen? Okay.
I can.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, great, thanks. So the in what we're formulating in terms of the platform for collective intelligence, and I think Ehud and Nolan in particular will have an appreciation for this. This is basically largely software focused, this representation, this view, but not entirely. So for example, the way to look at this is we start at the bottom, layer 0, and work our way up. So we start with some basic foundations, and that's what we've pretty much been talking about up until now, are the foundations, our philosophy about, the earth is overheating and it's up to us to do something about it, right? That's philosophy. Some people might say, no, just let nature do its thing. Okay, that's a different philosophy. That's not us, right? Speaking in broad brushstrokes about us. And of course, we often have different views. And so when I say us, it doesn't mean that we all have to have the same view, of course. In fact, that would be counterproductive. So building on that foundation, we then go one level up to conversational foundations, like what we're doing right here. And the culture of the social club, the culture of collective intelligence and sharing on video conferences and all that. That's very relevant here. The conversational domain is developing a network of conversations. So one way to think about, I'll just toggle back and forth between sharing. So
it might be an easy tweak just to add the S to intelligence. So your stack there, you could start saying it's your collective intelligences stack.
yeah,
Because you do say that, you're in the stack, you have many of those various intelligences being emphasized. So just a suggestion.
Sure. Thank you. Let's think about that.
I'll also just point out, I do have to leave pretty soon. Just a couple of comments to make at the moment before I do depart is that there is this gentleman that I talked about, Frank Ruttering, who is in the Vancouver, British Columbia area and has a website, ecologicalsurvival.org. And so he's very close to you. Hopefully you could maybe reach out to him, because his website emphasizes the importance of solar radiation management as a very important first intervention. Then the other person that's nearby you, near Seattle, is Peter Carter, who's just off. He's actually essentially on Vancouver Island, just north of you. And Peter Carter has a website, Climate Emergency or something to that effect. So, that Seattle, Vancouver, Pacific Northwest could be the hub for solar radiation management going forward.
No, very good. And thank you, Miles. And I also wanted to mention Uncle Frank. I mentioned he needs to head out in a few minutes as well. So, and that's also, by the way, part of the culture of the social club and the conversational domain that I was just talking about, is this ability to go in and out, right? To join a video conference, make your contribution, ask some questions, and then maybe pop over to a different one, right? Just imagine a future not too far away, hopefully not more than months away, where we literally have tens of thousands of video conferences like this one happening in parallel. This one is of a very general nature, where we talk about lots of different topics like collective intelligence and SRM and drawdown of greenhouse gases and all kinds of things. Imagine a future where we have tens of thousands of video conferences, most of which are on very specific topics, right? You might have video conferences going on specifically on the material selection. What kind of material should we use, right? To roll out millions of square miles of mirrors to cool the planet. Other conversations on the modeling aspects, as I was discussing earlier, others on the political aspects, others on culture, social, media, religion, right? And also many on, all right, if we're going to put all these mirrors up there, are there any secondary or tertiary derivative benefits of laying out all this infrastructure? So imagine all these different topics happening in parallel, and then having really, really good software, right? That is helping keep all of these conversations connected to each other and connected to taxonomies of topics, so that you might do a search and say, well, I really want to work on this aspect of SRM, the political aspect of SRM, right? You would be able to type that in as a search term, or just speak it to a Siri-like software that could then say, well, here are these different conversations. I've got a call I need to take for a moment. If somebody wants to continue, I'll be right back.
Well, I'm thinking thinking further into the future, we can imagine these conversations being recorded and transcribed and cataloged. And like Jamin's saying, we're entering this time where machines are now sophisticated enough to meet us on the verbal plane or in this dimension, whatever, however you want to put that. But basically we can go both ways, where computers are understanding what we're saying in a very sophisticated way, and are also able to converse with us, and simultaneously, I think humanity as a whole is in a time of pretty incredible collective intelligences and abilities to express through language. I don't think we've ever had the capacity that we do today. Not truly. So I think the combination of what we're doing here, which is using our life experiences and channeling it through this verbal pathway, it's extremely powerful, clearly. And machines are getting better and better at doing that same thing themselves, and aiding us, so that as we share in a conversation space like this, it doesn't just get trapped in these walls, right? We can really speak across space and time like we've never been able to do before. And you can use your imagination.
That's a very good point, Nolan, because I've been thinking, I've been 4 years mulling over these existential questions. And in fact, my wife has said the amount of notes that you've taken and the books you've read, you could have, if you had signed up with the university, you could have produced a PhD thesis, or at least I could have written another book. But I'm thinking the last thing we need is somebody writing another book. But if we can come here and just talk and get it out, a few things that I've just said already, if I had written that up in a book and send it out, well, it would take forever to get disseminated. But, I can download my brain verbally here pretty much in an instant if people can tolerate listening to me for hours, but I won't go on and on. In fact, I do have to say goodbye, and I'll catch you on the replay.
Awesome. Thank you,
Thanks,
Mike.
everybody.
Great to see you, buddy. All right. We'll see you soon. So back to, these are all great points. We're just trying to paint a picture here. So imagine these tens of thousands of conversations, and that's an arbitrary number. They could be hundreds of thousands. They could be thousands. Right now, there's one, right? This one. But imagine tens of thousands of these conversations, and imagine that we're using software to, as it's used today all the time, to transcribe what we're saying into text, to index that text, and essentially automatically form all these cross linkages between conversations and the various taxonomies of topics, so that, again, you can easily navigate to and find conversations that you want to participate in. Somebody may want to talk about SRM in the oceans and different ways of doing that at a high level. Great, have a conversation about that. Let's say within those, 2 specific conversations spin off. One about SRM in the oceans by creating bubbles in the ocean water, which are more reflective than just regular still water, right, or wavy water. Another being putting glass mirrors out in the ocean, as Dr. Yatow of Harvard has proposed. And we talk about that regularly. So imagine all these very specific conversations splintering off of more general ones, and people being able to navigate around and find those conversations where they can have the most impact, where they can apply their expertise or their passion or whatever, right? And through conversation, we can identify barriers, and through conversation, we can blast through those barriers. Hey, there's this political barrier. I don't know what to do about it, right? Well, let's get in conversation with people who might have ideas as to what to do about it, right? All right. So that's, in general terms, what I mean when I say the conversational domain. Let me go back to screen sharing. And by the way, this very screen sharing itself is a part of collective intelligence. Yes, we can be talking. We can also be sharing data of different kinds and visualizations of that data like I'm showing right now. So from layer 2, the conversational domain, layer 3 is basically what we've been talking about the last few minutes, which is high tech applied to the conversational domain using various flavors of artificial intelligence, transcription, indexing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't have to be anything too fancy. Just, basic transcription and indexing will take us, very, very far. Layer 4, imagine that now with this robust community of humans coming together in this conversational domain, these tens of thousands of conversations, imagine that we are able to reach consensus on goals. Do we want to do SRM? Yes, no. How much? Well, this much, right? Imagine that these kinds of consensus positions emerge from a form of governance, right? That we can also co-create. Then once we've identified these goals that we agree that we want to achieve, I'm speaking in very general terms just to kind of give an overview, right? We could talk for hours, literally, about any one of these layers. And of course, part of the big idea is that in the conversations that happen on collective intelligence, there can be ongoing conversations just on layer 1 or just on layer 0, right? As people flesh out those topics. So from whatever goals we agree to, we can then engage in ideation, brainstorming, and there's really good stuff on brainstorming. Just Google brainstorming Harvard video for a really great 4-minute video on brainstorming, and that's really about generating lots of ideas for solutions to accomplish a given goal. Okay, from those ideas that are generated through layer 5, the best of those can get passed to layer 6. And of course, we can talk about, well, what constitutes a good idea versus a not good idea, right? That's a very interesting question, and that can be explored, again, in conversation. But anyway, assuming we have a good filtering mechanism, the best ideas can then be designed. You can design solutions using something like a GitHub for solutionaries. And then those design solutions can then be modeled, and we can model multiple solutions in parallel. A good example of that is the global climate modeling and ocean modeling that I was talking about earlier. What if we did different scenarios of SRM applied in different parts of the planet? What results will that give us? So we can model different solutions being implemented before we actually implement them in the physical world, right? Okay. Any questions up till now before I continue? It's okay if there aren't. Just wanted to pause because I've been talking quite a bit. Anyway, so once we have the capability of modeling these different solutions in parallel, we could take it one step further and apply some optimization algorithms and artificial intelligence to help find the optimal mix of solutions of all those that have been designed and inserted into the model. And But whether we do it manually or whether we use AI, ultimately we want to come up with a master plan, the best set of solutions that we can think of and design. And then there's layer 9 is about integrating this optimal set of solutions into a whole, into a complete master plan, and then finally implementation. So I'll leave that up there for a minute. If there are any questions or comments on any of these different layers in what we're calling the collective intelligence stack, think of it like a stack of pancakes, where higher levels are supported by the layers below. But see, this goes all the way from very foundational stuff like, hey, we have a responsibility to Mother Earth, all the way through implementation, rolling out millions of square miles of reflective material, for example. So that's the basic idea here, right? And to get all this implemented is going to require the work of, probably thousands of very smart people. But as soon as I say that, I catch myself because a lot of the work has already been done. Probably most of it's already been done. We've got all these different components, open source software components, for example, vast libraries of solutions, and also vast amounts of services that are already in existence. Can anyone name one that we're using right now? We're using Zoom video conferencing. I didn't write that, right? We're just using it, right? So in order to build this stack of collective intelligence, we can use existing services. We can use existing software and piece it together. So we're actually a lot closer to having a planetary collective intelligence than one might initially guess. In fact, I would say what we're most missing is a community of people like us who are willing to come together regularly and actually populate these tens of thousands of conversations that we've been speculating on and talking about the urgent need for, right? I'll just say it very clearly, speaking to anyone who's watching this recording. Humanity, we need to do this, and we need to do lots of it across lots of different topics. We need to wake up and come together and make this phase transition from basically unicellular, oh, I'm just here for me, I don't like to talk to other people, I just like to chop down trees and kill animals and eat their meat and just do whatever's good for me. We need to make this transition from unicellular to multicellular. And what we're doing right here, this is multicellular. We're putting our minds together. We're communicating with each other. And so what we're talking about with the whole collective intelligence stack is essentially taking this concept of going multicellular to the nth degree, all the way towards implementation of solutions. Anyway, with that, I'm going to go on mute because I've been talking quite a bit now. Love to hear from other folks. So just jump in. Going on mute.
Well, Jamin?
Yes, Uncle Frank.
Jamin.
Yes, Uncle Frank. Yeah.
I know you've just begun to interact with Ye Tao and his group, but where do you think in this stack of stages, where do you think he feels he is in terms of just of SRM? Great
question. Let me go back to the image of the stack to answer your question, Uncle Frank. So they are working at the level of specific solutions, solution design, right? Ye Tao came up with this idea of these vast arrays of giant glass mirrors in the ocean to reflect sunlight back into space. He's done some preliminary designs of these solutions at Harvard. He's had meetings with glass experts at MIT for exploring how to perfect those designs and even fabrication. And so I think that's where they think, so they're at the level of solution design, also ideation. We're also talking about goals and governance. And so basically they're operating heavily at layers 4, 5, and 6 right now. And where I'm advocating for is that we build out a robust conversational domain with appropriate foundations, layers 0 and 1, and also add in the high tech and goals and governance to integrate with their good work and take it all the way through to implementation. Does that make sense, Uncle
Very
Frank?
good.
Yeah.
Yes, no, and that gives me an idea of just perhaps how to interact with them also
Yeah.
later.
Good, good, good.
Okay. All right. Looks like I'm going to have to drop out now, but it's good to have interacted with all of you. So have a good week.
Great. Thank you, Uncle Frank. Great to see you. We'll talk later. Thanks. See you soon.
Thanks for coming by. Good to see you.
All righty. Other questions, other comments about any of this good stuff that we're talking about?
Well, I have a question. Another general question about solar radiation management. I'm not a climate scientist, so I don't know much about all of this. I was wondering, how much do we, when I say we, I guess humanity or the scientific community at large, how much do we know about this? Because even if you did the most brilliant modeling of what it could cause in the world, there would still be a lot of unknown things that could happen. Some of them could be quite detrimental. How much like basic science research has been done on this subject?
That's a really, really great question, Ehud, and thank you for asking that. Here's how I would begin to answer that, is to say, number one, humanity as a whole, particularly in the last few hundred years, we have been making huge modifications to the climate, to the heat balance, to even reflectivity, melting all this ice. So we're already doing massive geoengineering, including SRM, right? And what we're basically talking about is reversing that harm that we're already doing. Let me use kind of a metaphor or an analogy that I often use, which is, imagine that here in my house, I've been irresponsible, lighting candles everywhere and walking away and not even monitoring what's going on, and the house catches on fire, right? And so I call the fire department. Please come put out the fire, right? Well, maybe my neighbor might walk up and say, hey, you're talking about blasting all this water all over your house? Aren't you afraid of any unintended consequences that might have? Right? Of course, in real life, it's obvious. Of course, there will be unintended consequences. When they blast the water on the house, they might break some windows. They might get my grandmother's blanket all wet. Things that we don't want to happen. But it's also obvious that we're already causing massive damage just by letting the fire burn, right? Now, obviously, in the case of houses on fire, we have learned we're kind of a smart species. By the way, you may want to mute your microphone. I'm getting some feedback. Just when you're not talking, maybe
Okay.
Generally mute the microphone. Thank you. We've learned as a species that if a house is on fire, it's kind of a no-brainer. We got to hose it down, right? What I'm proposing is even though there will be some negative unintended consequences, it's way better to cool the house down, stop the fire, and deal with the fact that, okay, maybe we got the bed wet, right? Or broke some windows. That's better than just letting the house burn. So right now we are letting the planet burn and melt and overheat. And I'm saying, you know what? It's time to call the fire department. And just like the neighbor who said, hey, whoa. You don't know all the consequences of cooling the planet. And I'd be like, you know what, neighbor? You're right. We don't know. But as an intelligent species observing what we're doing for the last several decades, it's obvious we're all going to be dead if we don't cool the planet. And we might be dead very, very soon because of the self-reinforcing feedback loops. The flames are growing, right? And there are children in the attic. And we've got to do something, right? So it's really a balance between doing analysis, but not getting stuck in what we might call analysis paralysis. Oh, I'm not going to do anything until we know exactly what, the house is on fire, right? The planet is on fire. Greenland is on fire. Canada is on fire. The forests of the Western United States are on fire. We're burning. Life is dying. We're in the middle of the sixth mass extinction. So it's a balance between, whoa, don't do anything until we've analyzed, and wait a second, we're on fire here. If we're going to save anything, we have to act quickly. So how do we strike that balance? That's why we're here. That's why we're having these conversations. Forgive me for being a little dramatic. Here on the West Coast of the United States, that's part of our culture, and we respect all cultures. So, it's also part of kind of how my father raised me. My uncle Frank's brother, his older brother, is my father, who passed away a few years ago. He would be quite dramatic in his expression. If it was something important, he'd say, "Jamin, we need to do this." Right. So anyway, forgive the drama, but feel free to ask or comment. Great question, Ehud. Any other questions? Any other comments? Thank you. Thank you.
So I was wondering if
yeah, go ahead, Adam.
I was just wondering about. I sent you an email on the Parent Teachers, the Science Teachers Association. Did you? And so, did you think about that? Or you said in that last email or video you sent around that you guys are pretty interested in getting students to help you. So.
Thank you, Adam. Great question. Great question. So, how do we expand the collective intelligence by getting science teachers involved and students? One of the things that we're finding is that young people tend to get much more active and jump in and get involved in these conversations and saying, hey, whoa, wait a second here. The planet's on fire. Life is, we're in the middle of the sixth mass extinction. Why aren't we doing something about it? Right? Older people, in general terms, this isn't fair to apply to everyone, but in general terms, older people, I'm over 50. People over 50, are kind of focused more on, how much wealth do I have? Do I have enough savings? Am I spending enough time with family? Right? While the planet is burning, right? So, younger people are saying, wait a second, I'm just at the beginning of my life and the planet is being destroyed so quickly. Maybe I'm going to postpone worrying about wealth accumulation for a minute and make sure that there's a livable planet with which I can even do something with my wealth, right? So young people seem to be a lot more apt to jump in. So that's a great comment, Adam. And Nolan, you're the youngest guy here in the group by a wide margin. Any thoughts on that you'd like to add?
I think this generation, people around my age, are very primed for something like this. They recognize in general that we've been screwing things up and we need to readjust in many ways. But I guess all I'm trying to say is I think the collective mind, especially of the youth, right now is caught in this depression over our current state. And so basically what we need is some antidote to that, which is, well, what do we do about it? Right? And I think as soon as we start putting that on the table in front of these young people, well, this is what we do. Here's the plan, right? Here's what we have built inside our minds. Here's what we've built inside of virtual reality. And here's what we're seeing building in the near future. And what are your thoughts? What do you see building in the future? What do you want to mess around with building in virtual reality? And at the very least, I think that the vast majority of people around my age will be excited. At the very least, they'll be excited and motivated by what's going on here. And then in the best of cases, we'll be gathering really bright minds that were just sitting in their classrooms bored before, I already got how to do this, 20 minutes ago, but the teacher's got to reiterate it for everyone else. And, I'm trying to help the kids next to me, and that's fulfilling to some degree, but man, what I really need to do is graduate. And that's essentially what we'll be providing, is an opportunity to do that, an opportunity to engage in something incredibly spontaneous and intellectually demanding. So there's kind of those two sides of that. We'll be getting the underdog geniuses are going to come to the forefront and really help out with this. And then even, the average Joe Schmo, so to speak, is going to be really excited that this is happening and supportive of this happening. And they'll be sharing it with their friends because it provides them with a vision for the future that allows them to live today like it really matters. Because so many people right now, especially the young people, without that vision for the future are just not treating what they have now as precious, and it's totally understandable why.
Yeah, and also I'd like to jump in and add to that, Nolan. That's a really great comment, set of comments there. Thank you. Is as a whole, as a group, speaking in general terms, and I often speak in general terms, and I know it's totally unfair because it's not the same for everyone, right? But in general terms, we were brought up with a story that basically says, hey, this is your world. Go out and get for yourself whatever you can, right? Get, accumulate, hoard, own, control, right? And, the world is just this really big resource. So when you're out there getting, don't worry so much about the impacts that you're having on the world. That's not really your problem. Just make sure you get more than the others and that nobody gets from you, right? And if somebody gets something from you, get back at them. So we're kind of born in this very rivalrous competitive modality where we're mainly brought up to focus on other human beings and not focus so much on the planet. So really what we're being called on to do, I believe, is to transform our very way of looking at life from, hey, I'm an individual, what can I get, to, what can we all do together to save life on Earth? Like, for example, develop a collective intelligence so that we can actually implement SRM. It's nice to talk about it, but let's actually do it, right? But you see, all this is requiring a fundamental and radical transformation in our philosophy of life. Who am I? Why am I here? Right? And I still get stuck in focusing on hoarding and accumulating and maximizing my assets, right? Let's face it, we all do, right? So one of the things that I encourage people to do is, while you're living your life and focusing on accumulating and hoarding and, you know, trying to secure your future financially, also think about helping to secure your future in terms of making the planet livable, joining this collective effort so that we can all survive this experiment that we're all participating in. Survive so that we can continue to talk. Survive so that we can continue to speculate and ask these questions. If we're all dead in a couple of years, we won't be able to ask questions anymore, and that won't be very much fun. So in parallel with your daily efforts at working and making money and securing a future for yourself and your family financially, also spend some time thinking and getting active in securing a future physically, in terms of biology, in terms of food, in terms of, you know, having air to breathe and not having a bunch of nuclear radiation, you know, killing yourself, your family, and everything else, which is what would happen if we let the economy collapse because we let this overheating proceed. So it's time to call the fire department, put out the fire, and then we can live another day, another year, another century, another 1,000 years. But we need to do this because no one's going to do it for us. Let me just read from an email from someone who I haven't met yet, who's applied to join Radish. And I said, hey, why don't you join the social club and learn about what we're doing? And he wrote, I'm not going to reveal who this person is. We respect privacy here. People will reveal what they want when they want. This is a private email, but I will quote a few things. I apologize for not joining. Your invite is very kind, and the social club is a great initiative. Unfortunately, I am struggling through a depression right now, and I'm having a lot of anxiety about the future. So, and a lot of people experience this when they start to face these hard realities, and they get depressed. A lot of people get resigned that we're all going to die. A lot of Guy McPherson's followers have taken that position. And, you know, that's part of why we're having this challenge of how do we build this community. Now, fortunately, there are other communities that are forming, other intelligences, and we're starting to come together, right? So and Nolan and I talk about this every day. How do we reach out to these other groups, and how do we all come together and build this collective intelligence? I point to the work done on the YouTube channel called Rebel Wisdom. Rebel Wisdom. Take a look at that. They've got a great 51-minute introductory video on collective intelligence. Another really good one on humanity's phase shift, making this phase transformation from unicellular, the individual, to multicellular, which is what we're doing right here. I'm going to go on mute.
So I just sent to the group a link to a video on Rebel Wisdom entitled Humanity's Phase Shift, and it features a man by the name of Daniel Schmachtenberger, and it's I haven't gone through all of their content, but this is my favorite thing that I've watched on their channel so far, and I think Daniel's really brilliant. Highly recommend.
Thank you, Nolan. In fact, we could even just play a portion of that. Nolan, when I do a screen share and I play some video, is it acceptable, the quality, in your experience?
The video's fine. The audio, though, I don't think it's taking straight from your computer. It's just recording the audio. That, you see what I'm saying? It goes out through your speakers and through your mic, which is it's okay. Like for speech, you can tell what people are saying. There's no problem there.
Okay. Very good. Well, we have someone joining by phone, and I want to welcome you. Feel free to introduce yourself, or feel free to just hang out.
Hi, it's me. It's Mike.
Mike. Wait.
Yeah, hi. I'm on my lunch break. I got this email. Checking my emails for some other thing, and I saw that there was a way to join one of these meetings, so I clicked the button.
Welcome, Mike. This is Ohm, right? This is Ohm?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, Ohm. Well, we usually start dancing when Ohm is in the house.
Oh, well.
If you feel when Ohm is in the house,
you
don't have to be quiet as a mouse. You can speak up. You can say, "Yo, what's up?" So, Ohm, yeah, welcome. We've been going at it for.
I wasn't sure if I was interrupting.
But you're breaking up a little bit, Ohm. Say again.
Oh, I'm in the parking garage, so the reception's not great.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I wasn't sure what this thing interrupted, like what was going on, so I wanted to get a little feel for that real quick.
Oh, you're totally fine. You're totally fine.
Yeah, your audio.
What are you guys talking about?
Okay, we're talking about collective intelligence, which is what we're doing right now that you're now participating in. And we're talking about solar radiation management to cool the planet and save life on Earth. And we're just speculating about what it's going to take and how this evolutionary path might proceed. The Social Club at the End of This World is a very open kind of forum for all such topics. We don't really restrict the topics, but we do have this general theme of how do we come together as a collective intelligence to save life on Earth. And we're in general consensus that we need to do SRM, solar radiation management, to cool the planet, and that we need to do that urgently. And we're speculating on, what's it going to take for humanity to really, wake up collectively, get our act together collectively. The five of us who are on this call, thank you. Hallelujah. Welcome. Shalom. This is what we're talking about. This is awesome. And the two other folks who were on earlier, my uncle Frank Shively and Miles Flagg from Canada. So we've got 7 people out of 7.5 billion. We've got 1 in a billion people participating in this collective intelligence, right? So it's like, all right, 1 in a billion, that's a good start. How about 1 in a million? Once we're at 1 in a million, we'll have 7,000 people participating in this, and that's a serious force to be reckoned with, of intelligent people coming together in a collective intelligence. Really, I think that it's not so much, what are our numbers, how many of us are there, how much money we have, are any of us in government or anything like that. Those are all interesting, but I think far more interesting is the actual intelligence that comes out of this, because if using our collective intelligence, let's say there's a few thousand of us who get together and say, wow, this is a pretty good idea. Collective intelligence, cool the planet, put out the fire. I can hang with that. Okay, I'll participate in that. Even if there's just a few thousand of us participating, right? We can come up with the ideas that can change the hearts and minds of millions, ultimately billions of people. And it all starts somewhere. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Ohm. Thank you, Ehud. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Jamin. And thank you, Zoom Corporation, for providing this platform that we all right. Thank you, Dr. Silas Rao for making the internet so fast years ago. He often participates in the social club. Anyway, does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you. Wow, that's a lot to jump into. How long has this been on, this particular call?
We've been on for about an hour and a half so far. We started at 11 a.m. Pacific time.
Okay. Wow. So, were you guys in the middle of discussing SRM specifically, or something else? I want to participate. I want to jump in.
Yeah. No, we had talked quite a bit about SRM earlier in the call. Now we're more talking about like collective intelligence, and we're kind of talking about how a lot of people are afraid to jump in and participate. You know, I just paraphrased from a note that I got from a friend who said they'd like to be participating, but they're very sad and depressed right now, right? So you see how we stop ourselves from saving ourselves because we're too busy being sad and depressed. We're too busy making money. We're too busy getting high. We're too busy watching television or Netflix, right? And we busy ourselves with other things. And when the planet is on fire and we're dying from overheating, and there's a solution right in front of us called SRM, well, to implement that solution, we need to organize. And that's really what we're doing here. We're organizing. We're organizing a collective intelligence and figuring out how do we cool the planet. It's really that simple. And we're basically building the collective intelligence by living it, by just jumping in and doing it, right? We're not sitting at home reading books about it. We're getting on a video conference and making it happen. And this is a very metaphysical conversation because here we are in the process of dying, and we're coming together and saying, hey, wait a second, this ain't cool. I'd rather not die. Let's at least have a conversation and see what we can do about this. How about it, Are you psyched to not die?
Yeah, I think it's exactly the kind of thing that I should be squeezing in on my lunch break. You're just talking about all those distractions, though, and I got thinking, gosh, this is I'm going back to the grind right after this. I'm squeezing in the most important thing of my day on my lunch break.
Right. Well, I really hats off to you, because, it's better that we squeeze in a few minutes to the topic of saving life on Earth than no minutes at all. Right. So thank you for being here. This is a start, right? We need to start somewhere. And of course, we're not alone. There's other groups that are starting in their own way. We talked about Rebel Wisdom. In fact, we talked about sharing from a video of Daniel Schmachtenberger. I'd be happy to play a little segment of that. What do you think, Nolan? Shall we do that?
Please.
Did you have a segment in particular you wanted to share?
Why don't you give me an idea? What do you think we should share from? In the middle, minute 20? I mean, it's really good stuff. Or we could just start at the beginning and play a few minutes. What do you think, Nolan?
Well, I'm scrolling through the comments here because Well, just a note kind of to myself and the group here. I think this would be a really good video to go through and timestamp different parts, because the interviewer asks questions, every 3 minutes, 4 minutes, something like that. And in between, Daniel gives really comprehensive responses, which is what I was looking for in the comments here, just some timestamps. And I do see a couple of them. It looks like around minute 14 and a half, quote, reconditioning a felt sense of our connectedness with everything is not actually a trivial thing to do. It is a deep process. Really, any point in that video is brilliant, I just gotta say. So it's kind of a hard question to answer.
I've screen shared. I'm just gonna show some stuff. We'll just start at the beginning and then jump to minute 14 and a half and just get a little flavor of it. But let me know if there's any issues with the audio. But here goes.
A lot of people have a felt sense that things are starting to break down. Do you sympathize with that? And how would you sort of sum up what that means?
If we look at the history of the thing we call civilization to date, one very obvious thing that we notice is that all the early civilizations don't still exist. Whether we look at the Mayas, the Aztecs, the Egyptians, the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, they all collapsed. And so the precedent is actually that civilization collapses, not that it maintains. The real difference is that this is the first time we have a completely global civilization. There really is no such thing as USA or China separate from each other when you understand globalized materials economies, technology, economics, where there's actually no country in the world that can make its own consumer electronics, right? Without the mining and manufacturing and technology that happens from around the world. So our process of civilization is one that has inherently self-terminating dynamics built into it. When that happens at a fully global scale, it is basically the catastrophe is just unbounded, where it has always been bounded. As big as the Roman Empire was when it fell, it wasn't everything. And limited by not only its total geographical size, but the level of technology it had, it caused desertification through unrenewable agriculture, but it wasn't able to destabilize the biosphere writ large. In 100 years of industrialized fishing, we've removed most of the large fish species from a water planet, right? A 3/4 water planet took 3.5 billion years to get those fish species. And so you recognize that we're operating the same way that has always led to war and environmental destruction and collapse of civilization, just factoring exponential technology. And so when you start to think about exponential rivalrous dynamics that lead to polarization that ends up leading to war, and now exponential warfare, it becomes larger than a finite biosphere can handle, and it becomes existential. When you think about exponential extraction and exponential pollution, which means depletion and accumulation from open loops in a network diagram. You go to an ecosystem, there are no open loops. Everything is the food for something else. There is no unrenewable resource, no waste. Our civilization is characterized by a materials economy that's linear, not circular. So toxicity is depletion on one side, accumulation on the other. Whether we're talking about on the depletion side, whether we're talking about species extinction or biodiversity loss or any of the issues that we look at there, and on the accumulation side, whether we're talking about CO2 levels in the air or in the water or nitrogen runoff or degraded uranium or whatever else it is, those are all specific instantiations of open loops in the way we do civilization in relationship to the closed loop dynamics of the ecosystem.
I'm just going to pause right there. That kind of gives an initial taste. Let's go to minute 14 and a half that Nolan was talking about.
And Jamin, it might be worth it to try to find the question that's asked right before this 14 and a half.
I'll do that. I'll see what I can do.
What our nervous system was taking in and getting an intuition for. And then we grow up not connected to any complex system nature, to a little bit of manicured nature, that's about it, and all man-made structures that are complicated, not complex. They're all fragile. You burn this house down, it doesn't repair itself. You burn a forest down, it does. You damage this camera, it doesn't repair itself. You cut me, I'll repair myself. So we don't even have an intuition for what nature is, or what complexity is, or what self-organization is, because we haven't spent any time around it. And we are that conditioned by what we're around. Now, younger generations that are growing up with almost their entire life from their earliest neuroplasticity is two-dimensional, right? And that it responds to them in a way that doesn't have physics. It has some other pre-programmed in physics, so there isn't even...
Two-dimensional, like a screen. Isn't that crazy? They're relating to a two-dimensional world, right? Okay, resuming. But just interject anytime, you guys. And hey, it looks like my brother Fred is joining. Fred, shalom, brother. How you doing? Welcome, Fred.
Hi, Fred.
Fred, can you hear me? Are you kind of frozen?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes. How are you?
Okay, we're good. We're good.
Hey, Fred, check it out. So we got Mike dialing in from the Portland area, and we have Ehud.
Hey.
Ehud is out in Jerusalem, Israel, joining us for the first time. Say shalom.
Hello.
Good.
Shalom, Lashana Tova. I just wished him a happy new year.
Very good. Very good.
Are you religious or secular? Mike, is it Mike?
No, Ehud. Ehud.
Hey, look.
I'm secular.
Yeah, so am I.
Good to know.
Okay.
All right. Beautiful.
All right.
Anyway, so we were just Fred. Well, this is my brother Fred, who joins us and always adds life and happiness to the party. Seriously. So anyway, thanks for joining, Fred.
Comic relief.
But anyway, so we're we were sharing some video of Daniel Schmachtenberger, who we've talked about, Fred, and here I'll just get back to that a little bit. Let's see here. Whoops, not that. All right.
Oh, two-dimensional, no physics. I love that.
Yeah, we're a two-dimensional world. Kids are growing up. Fred, he just made the point. I'll rewind for a second for Fred to.
And an intuition for how physics works.
Okay, here we go.
Camera, it doesn't repair itself. You cut me, I'll repair myself. So we don't even have an intuition for what nature is, or what complexity is, or what self-organization is, because we haven't spent any time around it. And we are that conditioned by what we're around. Now, younger generations that are growing up with almost their entire life from the earliest neuroplasticity is two-dimensional, right? And that it responds to them in a way that doesn't have physics. It has some other pre-programmed in physics, so there isn't even an intuition for how physics works. So all of that is a preface to say, reconditioning a felt sense of our connectedness with everything is not actually a trivial thing to do. It's a deep process. And there's a cognitive element that people can start with, which actually matters, which is as soon as you just really think about it and think about who am I without plants and who am I without pollinators, and you realize I don't exist, and you start to get that there is this kind of narcissism that we're stuck in almost all the time, thinking about me, I, and it's not even a good thought. It's not even a rational way to optimize my own life, let alone the fact that it creates depression. Just thinking cognitively about the interconnectivity of everything actually helps a lot. How to get a more embodied sense? Go spend time in nature, do psychedelics, do any kind of state practice that creates expanded states, see how you can have more intimate relationships with more people, all those things.
Like what we're doing right here, right?
Amen. Amen.
We're getting connected to each other and saying, hey, something's happening here. Something's happening here, and it's not exactly clear. Sometimes I feel like just drinking beer, but I would rather be here. I'd rather be here with all of you and, figure this out. All right, let's see what the next question is, and then we'll get back to talking amongst ourselves.
And when you sketch it out like that, it seems immense, the challenge. Are you hopeful or are you pessimistic?
I think that the shift that we are on the precipice of is not like the shift from the Dark Ages to the Enlightenment or even the agricultural revolution. It's more like a shift from single cell to multicellular life. It's like a really deep fundamental shift in the level and type of complexity in the nature of reality that we're talking about. Evolution brought about rivalrous dynamics, but then it also brought about our prefrontal cortices, our capacity for abstraction, and our ability to do design and technology. Lions can't make themselves radically more capable as a predator in a very short period of time, faster than the gazelles can get away, right? If they could eat all the gazelles and then go extinct because they debased the substrate upon which they lived. And so as the great white's getting a little bit faster, the seals are also getting faster, right? The whole system is co-evolving, so there are no radical power asymmetries. We started modeling ourselves as an apex predator, but then developing tools that increased our ability to do that on an exponential curve when the environment wasn't increasing its capacity to deal with that on an exponential curve. That self-terminates. So that's evolution modified by technology. We need something that is neither of those things to be able to take the next step. And one way of talking about it is evolution is an unconscious process, right? An algorithmic process of which species survive and reproduce. And it's extremely slow and most things fail. What makes it through, though, has a profound degree of complexity. Design is a much faster process, but we always build things that optimize for some number of functions that we intended it to optimize for, but they affect more things than we intended to optimize, which usually is an externality. There's some harm where it wasn't intended. Evolution by design is something that is different than just technology design, where we're designing complicated systems, and it's different than complex design that is unconscious.
I'll just pause there. We can go on, but what we're essentially doing is evolution by design. We're designing a collective intelligence so that we can come together in this multicellular way and become vastly more intelligent than what we're doing individually, right? That's the essence of what we're doing here. It's evolution by design. We're designing the next epoch, the next phase shift of our intelligence as collective intelligence, because we're way smarter together than individually. If you go back, tens of thousands of years ago to our ancestors, we are a social species. We work together as a unit of maybe 100 of us or so, right? Collaborating, right? Sharing, gathering around the campfire and saying, okay, what do we do next as a whole, as a group? So we're bringing back this collective intelligence. We're bringing back the campfire, right?
And the cool thing about this design process is that it's clearly, it's spontaneous.
Let me interrupt just so I can say thank you to Ehud. He just had to sign off. Okay, Ehud just signed off. Anyway, thank you, Ehud, for joining us all the way from Jerusalem, Israel. I know it's pretty late there, so thank you. And please come again. Back to you, Nolan. Sorry for interrupting.
Oh, no worries. And Mike, do you need to say something? It looks like your audio's coming through.
Oh, it shouldn't be. But as long as I've got the talking stick, I've got to head out at 1, whether or not I get the chance to say goodbye.
I don't see Mike.
No, see, Mike is joining by telephone. Remember all those times I hassled you, Fred, and I said you can join by phone? Anyway, Mike's joining by phone. So anyway, Mike, great to see you. Great to hear from you. Thank you for participating in this collective intelligence. This is what's up. This is where it's happening right here, right now. And it's all messy and it's all preliminary and all that, but we got to start somewhere, right?
Well, and look how much ground we've covered in, how long has Owen been with us? A half an hour?
20 minutes? 20,
Yeah.
30, yeah.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground, especially thanks to Daniel.
Yeah, and see, this is part of the collective intelligence. This is part of the high tech applied to the conversational domain is that we can literally pull in other conversations into this conversation. We can mash up conversations, right? Just like when Ohm is on like the turntable and he's scratching and mixing and mashing, right? You know?
Jamin, you don't even know how fitting that is.
I know Ohm. Ohm is in the house. Ohm is badass. He knows how to mix. He knows how to match. He knows how to mash up with the cash, and he, you know, he's got the rhymes.
Okay, I have a question. Okay.
Go for it, Fred. What you got? All right.
Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, you're muted, Fred. We're pretty good at lip reading, but not that good. So you might want to mute it.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. How did Ehud get to the meeting?
Ehud's been following Guy McPherson, and he recently found that Guy McPherson is getting onto the conversation about SRM, solar radiation management. What? And so he's like, whoa, this is cool. And, you know, and he heard Guy McPherson mentioning Radish, and he said, well, shoot, you know, if there's a collective intelligence happening to make this happen, I want to find out about that. So he applied to be a member of Radish. I responded and said, hey, why don't you join the social club? You'll really enjoy talking with Fred.
Did he have, yeah, right. Did he have anything interesting to share today?
He had some really good questions, you know, and
from a different part of the world. I'm curious about that.
Yeah. He had some really good questions. So he was mostly in asking questions and listening and kind of getting the full scope of it. Let's face it, this ain't your usual CNN conversation. The Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed by 200 points today as the energy sector da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Great, let's keep burning more hydrocarbons, you know? And
please, Jamin, I'm trying to eat. That's so disgusting.
In other news, a bunch of people spontaneously exploded.
Yeah, right.
I just want to. This is a very uncommon conversation.
Did you get the article I sent you about technology?
You asked me to read it. I read it, and I replied. I said, "Fred, I read it."
You did?
I did. I replied to you. I said, "Fred, I read the article."
I didn't see your reply. Okay, I'll look for it.
Check
what did you think?
Huh? Well, here's what I think. Okay, let me recap the article for Ohm and Nolan and whoever else is watching this recording. So Fred sent me this interesting article. It basically said, look, we humans, we develop all these technologies and then we start implementing them without really much consciousness of the unintended consequences, right? And this actually maps to what Daniel Schmachtenberger was talking about. We design stuff for a specific purpose without considering or knowing the full impacts and everything. And the basic thesis is, you know what? It's been such a train wreck. Civilization, technology, industry, et cetera, has been such a train wreck. You know what we need to do is we need to essentially throw the machine into reverse and have degrowth instead of more growth, right? Interesting hypothesis. I actually, and you know, there's a lot of wisdom in that, but frankly, we're at a point now, it's kind of like saying, all right, my house is on fire. The fire department just showed up. They're ready to hose it down. And I say, hey, you know, I'm this long-haired hippie, and I don't like the idea of applying more technology to this situation. You know, pumps and hoses and spraying water. Let's let nature just do what it's going to do and, you know, burn down the house if necessary, right? That's my cynical response to this, you know, oversimplistic idea that basically we just should be more hands off and just kind of do less and just kind of let nature take its course. Nature taking its course, we're going to have civilizational collapse, massive forest fires, wildfires, melting of ice, exponentially spiking temperatures. We're all going to die. And then the nuclear power plants are going to all go into Fukushima mode. and we're going to fry the atmosphere with too much radiation, and we're going to turn our planet into a dead, hot, lifeless, radioactive rock. And even Ohm could tell you that that ain't cool.
Oh, no, that would be a disaster.
Exactly. So yeah, all peace and love and granola and everything to all the, long-haired folks who are saying, oh man, we got to degrow. That's all cool and again, but we've got to also figure out how we're going to stop the fire, how we're going to cool the planet. And we're going to do that through SRM unless somebody has a better idea. If you got a better idea, join the social club and tell us. And we'll go do that, right? But we got to do something other than read New York Times articles that talk about degrowth.
Oh, you know what?
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Well, I just thought it was worth considering.
No,
and I think there's a lot of validity in what he's saying, but I also agree that we don't really have a choice. I mean, we've got a shot at cooling the planet, and we got to try it. I'm just saying, though, that there are, and I agree with you, there are unintended consequences of technology. I mean, it's evident in everyday life. I mean, cell phones and the internet and all that, and it's just radically transformed the way human beings work together or don't work together. So, I mean, that was an unintended consequence. Anyway, yeah, so thank you, Jamin. That was you proved to me that you actually read the article and that was unintended consequences are things I think about. And also that, nature doesn't give a shit about us. Really. I mean, if we don't do something, or if it doesn't care whether we do something or don't do something, because in terms of geological time, if it takes 100 million years to get things back to normal, so be it, right?
Well, right, but consider that if we go hands off and take our hands off the steering wheel and just let this thing coast, we could end up with Fukushima times 440 nuclear power plants around the world, fry the atmosphere, and literally turn this place into a lifeless rock where even the bacteria are fried and the cockroaches are fried. And Ohm won't be able to mix, music on the vinyl no more. And that would be probably the biggest tragedy of all. But, so.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's about, saving Private Ohm and his ability to mix, right? So we've got to save life on Earth in order to even have this conversation, right? And also, but back to your point, hey, what if we just let nature do its thing, let it kill us all off? There may be no life left. Life may not be able to bounce back if we screw up too badly. So I think we're
unacceptable.
Yeah, unacceptable. Yeah. So we're kind of like the car that is going 70 miles an hour and broke through the shock barrier on the highway. Now we're heading towards some music festival where there's 10,000 people, dancing to Ohm's music. Yes, that was a mistake to bust off the highway, but it'd be an even bigger mistake to not hit the brakes and just say, oh, I screwed up. I'm veering off the highway. I don't want to screw up anymore, so I'm just going to take my hands and feet off and just let it happen. And then our 70 mile an hour blast right through all the people dancing to Ohm's music. Even Ohm could tell you that'd be scary.
Hey guys, it's been a blast, but I've got to get back to the machines of capitalism.
All right,
we'll do this again sometime.
Yay!
Thank you for joining.
Let's hear it for capitalism.
Thanks.
Hoorah!
Great to see you. All right.
See you later.
Shalom, Ohm. All right. So, anyway.
Shalom.
Shalom.
There you go.
Shalom. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, and shalom, everybody. Join us.
Yeah.
We need you here. Join the collective.
What happened to, where's Daniel?
Dan Bader? Yeah, he hasn't been on in at least a few weeks. Maybe a couple of, maybe it's been
3 weeks at least.
No, more than that. It's been over a month. So let's all.
How do we get a hold of Dan? Tell him we miss him.
I'm going to send him an email right now.
Yeah, do. And send me Nolan's email as well, so I can send these articles to him for his consideration.
All right.
Hey, Fred, I'll do you one better. I don't think I have your phone number.
206
Okay,
355
206
355.
Wait, stop. I'm going to pause.
Stop it.
Okay, we've resumed recording. Thankfully, we didn't publish Fred's phone number.
My phone number.
Otherwise,
yeah.
a lot of women watching would be calling you up at all hours.
Yeah, that would be terrible. I could deal with that.
Anyway, I sent Dan an email and copied both of you guys. How's it going, sweetheart? Awesome. So anyway, we're still recording. Been having an awesome meeting today, and just living the dream. We're pioneering collective intelligence. How else are we going to do it? By not talking with each other? I mean, we just got to get on and keep doing it, and keep inviting the world to join us. Right?
So here's something I did this week, or not this week. I did it weeks ago. I have a friend who goes to North Seattle Community College, and he has created, an environment or something like we're doing, and he has 30 kids or whatever they are, I don't know, signed up for it's a climate change group. So he didn't want me to come today. Today was the first meeting. I don't know why. But anyway, he's going to report back to me, and you're awful. and tell me if there were anything worthwhile was brought up.
Well,
I thought that was great.
No,
30 people signed up for it.
That's a great example of a collective intelligence that's forming. Yeah. We're trying to create a federation of collective intelligences, so we can have tens of thousands of conversations like this, but most of which would probably be much more specifically focused on very specific topics. This is kind of a catch-all general forum. We can talk about anything we want, right?
Including penis length.
Oh my, Fred, thank you for that. By the way, if you want to say something, just say pause and I'll pause recording.
Okay.
All right. But
we're talking about bigger scale issues.
Yeah, we're talking about bigger scale issues than yours.
How do you know?
All right. Let's get it on. Right now.
Okay. Really? Yeah. I hit the shutdown button on that one. Anyway, what was I going to ask you? What happened in California this week?
So this week in California, so we went down, we had a really great Sierra Club dinner with Dr. Silas Rao presenting on veganism. And then after the dinner, after the presentation, we all stuck around for a post-presentation discussion where we talked about the 3 pillars of the stool for saving life on Earth. And this actually gets to what Nolan and I were discussing late last night up until
You're sleep deprived is what you're saying. I believe you.
Thank you. Anyway, so let me talk about what we were talking about last night. So the first 3 pillars of the stool are collective intelligence, SRM. That's the first thing we apply to cool the planet. followed immediately by veganism. And of course, they don't have to happen sequentially. They can all happen in parallel. They all are happening in parallel. Paradoxically, way more people are working on veganism right now than on collective intelligence or on SRM combined, right? But we think the very first step is, but actually what's interesting is, you see, even the veganism that's happening has collective intelligence incorporated into it, right? So it's like you can't really separate these things anyway. But we were talking last night about, in general terms, a proposed evolutionary pathway for humanity, where with collective intelligence as the foundation, right? We then do SRM with that, make it happen, cool the planet, buy us time, right? Get off of this Ozzy Osbourne crazy train of exponential overheating. Then next, spread veganism globally using the same collective intelligence, make it the in thing, the hip thing, the acceptable thing, make the alternative unacceptable. Next stage, eradicate all forms of crime. I've done my whole campaign here in the state of Washington and the West Coast generally about eradicating criminal drug cartels as the first stage of eliminating all forms of organized crime, en route to eliminating organized crimes against Mother Earth, which is what modern civilization is committing in mass. Once we've stopped the crimes, we can start cleanup and rehabilitation and healing, right? And as in parallel with transforming our entire set of living arrangements from going from the omnicidal set of living arrangements we're living today to healing living arrangements that are symbiotic with life on Earth. And finally, as we develop all those other stages, in parallel, develop and design the cultural transformation to radically transform our culture from a culture of, I'm here to hoard and accumulate all that I can, to a culture of, hey, let's get together, form a collective intelligence, redesign everything, implement it, and live in a whole new world, a whole new reality, which is much more about cooperation and being in symbiosis with nature than being omnicidal relative to not just the rest of nature, but to ourselves. We're driving ourselves to extinction with our current set of living arrangements, current culture, current paradigm, current cultural story. So just to recap, collective intelligence, SRM, veganism, eradicating all forms of crime, cleaning up, rehabilitating, and healing our planet, our ecosystems, our oceans, etc., transforming radically all of our living arrangements as humanity, and transforming our culture and story. That's what kept us up late last night talking about all these things.
Okay. I know what SRM is, but what did the letters stand for again?
Solar radiation management.
Okay.
Cooling the planet by...
Yeah, I know what it is.
Right,
I know.
Okay.
Don't worry, Jim, and I'm saving all my potato chip bags.
Thank you.
Dude, I am going over to whatever the assisted living facility is called.
Okay, I'm going to pause. Okay, back to recording. And remember, just do this if you want to pause and say something personal. Okay. And by the way, this is part of the culture of collective intelligence. We're figuring this out. You know, there are no commandments 11 through 15 chiseled in stone that say, here's how to do video conferences, here's how to do collective intelligence. We have to figure this out, right? That's what we're doing here. We're figuring out by doing. So humanity, jump in, apply to radish.org. Okay, pausing. All right. So, humanity, join us. Join the conversation. Join the collective intelligence. What else are we going to do? Continue down this default path of collective stupidity where, we each just try to hoard more stuff and this weird stuff called currency. along the path to omnicide. We're in omnicide right now. It's a process. And it's really messed up. So we're here groping for the alternative, right? CI, collective intelligence, SRM, veganism, eradicating crime, healing, transforming our living arrangements, transforming our culture, transforming our story. We are this incredibly powerful species. We're very numerous. We've got all kinds of technology, all kinds of data, all kinds of information, all kinds of tools. Let's use our tools, technology, data, ability to analyze. Do this en masse. Let's cool the freaking planet so that we can live another day, another year, another century, another millennium, and figure out a bunch of other cool stuff. Right? Let's do it. What else are we gonna do? Not do it? Oh, okay, that's a good idea. Let's keep doing what we're doing until we're all dead. Right? Come on, people. Join. Sign up for radish.org. Go to radish.org. Hit apply. It's free. It always will be. And you can join us in conversations like this one. What could be cooler? Join the rest of the cool kids in cooling the planet.
Okay.
All right. Anything more to say? I'm gonna have to sign off here to get ready to get on the road. Anything else to say before we adjourn for the day?
Before we stop recording, I just want to say thank you to anyone watching. Seriously, if you made it this far, that's impressive.
Yeah. Thank you. And it's a lot more fun
to
to actually jump in and join us. So join us. Apply to be a member of Radish. Sign up on radish.org. No gimmicks, no catches. We won't sell your data or give it to anyone else. And we're just here doing our very best to save life on Earth. All right. Any last words?
Until then.
Beautiful. All right, I'm going to stop recording. We can keep hanging, but I'm going to stop recording. In 3, 2, 1. And thank you all for watching.